in the trenches, under attack, separated from the nest. And through this test,
all right. Welcome back to the channel. So this is what I wanted to read and included in the last video, the withered fig tree, but I didn't get to, it got too long. So I'm going to just start reading now. We're reading out of chapter 58, the Holy Godspell, Nasarean Bible of the Essene Way. And this is where Yahshua is telling us about his diet. It's called Hayasod. But as he's teaching it, he decided to read out of Matanah, and this is important. So, chapter 58, verse 23. After reciting the commandments of Moses, Yahshua said, "We Nasareans know that unlike the Holy Megillah, the Torah of the Aaronite Jews does not present a vegetarian Moses. Their scriptures are not our scriptures and never were. Rather, their scriptures have been heavily influenced by Lucifer in an attempt to get people to eat meat as revealed in Matanah." Yahshua opened the Megillah to the section to which he had just referred, and in a voice both powerful and gentle said, "I will read from the book of Matanah, the first book of the Holy Megillah. Behold, the Luciferians were dismayed that they had not prevented the planting of the tree of life on this world, but they had a second plan. Though they could not destroy the tree of life, they could plant their own seed and try to deceive the creatures of this world to eat from their tree instead of the tree of life. Thus it was that outside of Cush, near its borders, the Luciferians planted their own tree, the tree of evil disguised as good, called Baal, which means confuse." We're at verse 28. Lucifer said to his soldiers, "Behold, I will plant my own seeds beside their garden. Near their tree I will plant my tree. And I will appear to Adam and Eve and tell them that I am their God. And I will command them to obey my angels and me. Lo, I will forbid them to eat of the fruit of the tree of life, and will command that they eat only from the tree that I plant." And the tree of evil disguised as good was not only evil, rather it was a cunning mixture of good and evil, of truth mingled with falsehoods. For Lucifer knew that the young souls he wished to ensnare would not knowingly choose the dark path. Yea, darkness must be mixed with enough light to make it palatable. Neither would these young souls knowingly worship Lucifer and Satan rather than Elohim and Jah. Therefore, Lucifer would pretend that he was God. He would call himself Yahweh and then tell them that he was their creator. He would establish the priesthood of the serpent on this world, which is the satanic priesthood of the dark path. Lucifer communed with his master Satan, and behold, the voice of the serpent spoke within Lucifer, saying, "Let my priests mix good with evil, for it is in robes of good that I shall dress my seeds." And only one thing is truly needful to enslave mankind. He must be made to eat the flesh of animals, for then we can enter his body and enjoy his senses. Yea, we can whisper in his head, and he will believe that our words are his own thoughts. No matter if his scriptures declare love one another, as long as he eats flesh, he will be unable to follow those words. This is the verse I came here for. And yet, because we mix those good words into his scriptures, our religion of blood sacrifice is made more palatable to the young souls we wish to ensnare. That was what I wanted to read in the last video, but it was too long. The video just, man. So this is part 2, and we're talking about the cursed fig tree. And I'm really starting to see from a whole nother level now that Lucifer planted his own tree, and so there is a bad tree out there. We're not saying there's not, And I also connected it to tell you that what I'm realizing is that that was verse 43, where he said, because we mix those good words. So I'm like, what good words? That would mean that in all the scriptures, there's some good words. And they talk about this. Yahshua talks about it in when he's talking to Johann in India about the Bhagavad Gita, because Johann asked Yahshua, was there any truth in there? Yahshua said, there's more truth in the scriptures of India than anywhere else. And that just has to do with the animals, the killing and eating of animals. There's more people that don't eat meat in India than anywhere else in the world, I think. And that's why the scriptures of India are bringing light to the world. It says just and I don't know all the scriptures of India, so there may be more. There definitely is more. I learned so much when I studied with the whole yoga teacher training course about myself, about my body. So yes, especially in India. So there's got to be some little bit of good words and truth in all the scriptures. And that's why I was freaking out when I made this video, and I realized that the parable of the fig tree, the one where the tree puts forth leaves, is actually recorded in the Holy Megillah, and it's not in this King James. But they tried to create their own fulfillment of this parable by doing all that stuff over there, which is, like I said, still going on today. So it's just good to know. And one other thing that was exciting for me was that before, when I used to study the King James and that's all I had, and I was able to be receiving truth and light from these words, I got some that this connects with me now. The parable comes back around. Some of us are going to hit that curveball and some of us are not, but it hits home for me because I studied this King James so tough, and like I said, I did receive light. I'm here. I'm right here right now, receiving more truth and more light every day. So these are stepping stones, definitely. Something else I wanted to read, because I talked about the 33, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit more because there was a mission, and that's pretty deep. I think it's in chapter. Let's go there. Let me see. All right, so now I'm going to read to you a little bit from chapter 74, because I mentioned those 33 that John the Baptist had trained. And he told Yahshua and Miriam he could only vouch for 32 because Judas the Sicarii was there, and we know his story. But I'm reading from chapter 74 real quick, verse 312. This is Yahshua and Miriam talking. They were tag teaming. I don't know if it keeps going, but right now this is Yahshua speaking. He says, on these very cliffs above Gedi, we will baptize and train John's disciples to become not simply Nasareans, which job John has well begun, but to also perform specific roles in our plan of action related to our outreach ministry to Yisrael. And that's Israel. We know it as Israel. They just spell it with a Y in this Megillah. Okay, so they had this plan of action related to our outreach ministry to Israel, particularly our outreach to the Aaronite religion that you know so well. You former Aaronites will be our ambassadors or apostles to the Aaronites, representing us to both the Sadducees and Pharisees among them. Prior to sending you each out to perform your initial missions, then to return to us to receive your next assignments, we will camp here with you for as many moons as seems appropriate based on your progress. That time will be an intensive training in our version of Essene Yoga and in personalized training to prepare each of you for your particular missions. Our travel companions as our first circle of apostles to Israel will be trained to be the overseers of our second circle of apostles to Israel and to perform their own special missions of various kinds. It is important to understand that not only are we purposely fulfilling the Nasarean messianic prophecies of the Holy Megillah, which call for the coming of the Lord Christ and the Lady Christ, but now will purposely also fulfill one of the various Aaronite messianic prophecies, that of the Messiah of peace. Because the Aaronite Jews do not recognize the right of a woman to priesthood or to study and teach their scriptures, they are not prepared and are strongly conditioned against the Nasarean idea of a feminine co-Messiah, a female Christ. Nevertheless, Magdalene will not withhold her words from sincere seekers with open minds and hearts enough to accept a woman as a spiritual teacher, because it will be me that fulfills the role of the expected by the Aaronite Jews of Israel, Messiah of peace. The ministry of Magdalene among the Aaronites will be more behind the scenes than it has been among the Nasarean nation of Yisrael. My fulfillment of the Aaronite Messiah of peace prophecy is an outreach mission to raise the spiritual vibration of the Aaronite religion to a higher level, universal love consciousness. So that was one of Yahshua's missions. You hear that? He says, my fulfillment of the Aaronite Messiah of peace prophecy is an outreach mission to raise the spiritual vibration of the Aaronite religion to a higher level of universal love consciousness. So it had nothing to do with dying for sins, guys. Just want to say that right there. Verse 322, he says, lo, though I fulfill only the Aaronite best sort of messianic prophecies, the best of those related to the Messiah of peace, even then I must differentiate my teachings from some violent, unwise words associated with those prophecies in the Aaronite scriptures. For lo, even their Messiah of peace prophecies are not without violent aspects. Besides their few Messiah of peace verses, the best of their messianic prophecies, the Aaronites also have very violent warrior Messiah prophecies. My greatest challenge in being accepted by Aaronites as their long-awaited Messiah of peace is that to live up to my own consciousness, I must heavily critique their violent scriptures. Do you see the irony? I will be fulfilling certain prophecies of a scripture that I consider way too violent, even dark and satanic in some parts, such as Leviticus. I will only be doing this for one reason: love. I will give my human life for love, for the Messiah of the Aaronites will be crucified like a sacrificial lamb. I will forgive them for that crime, making the consequences less than otherwise would be the case, and in doing so will leave behind a set of universal love teachings that they can follow as best they can. The Nezerian Christianity that will result will include the Nasarean doctrine of vegetarianism, which will be linked to their original vegetarian diet injunction given in their version of Genesis, and will forbid slavery. But most Aaronites are not ready to receive a female Messiah or our teachings on the divine feminine. Even so, should they take on vegetarianism long enough, for a long enough duration, they will grow more spiritual and non-violent over the course of this age, and in the next cycle may be ready to receive the divine feminine and the Nasarean scriptures. Verse 333, the unseen enemy, the Luciferian serpent priesthood, will work against this outcome, but I am not responsible for their activities, and neither are you, our disciples and apostles. They will do their work, and we will do ours. They have their apostles, we have ours. In the end, we know that everything will work out according to the good will of the Most High. And even though it seems that our enemies will win many battles, in fulfilling the best of the Aaronite prophecies and disregarding the rest, I will honestly proclaim that I have come not to destroy their scriptures, but to fulfill those scriptures. I will teach and demonstrate universal love as the Messiah of peace. For once something is fulfilled, it is time to move on to new and better things. When a container of wine is empty, one does not refill it with the same wine, but with new wine. Most Aaronites are not ready to discard their entire framework, the container of their religion, but I will bring a new and better wine to pour into that container. Some Aaronites like you will receive the Nasarean doctrine of the Lord Christ and the Lady Christ, but most will not, simply because they are not ready to discard the old container. But one Nasarean precept that must be taken up by an Aaronite or anyone else that wants to practice the universal love teachings of the Messiah of peace is vegetarianism. I tell you, truly, universal love at the level of human being cannot be practiced by those whose vibration is tainted by eating meat. Yes, I will say unto the Aaronites, I come not to destroy your religion, rather I come to fulfill it, and thus elevate it. Most Aaronites will not receive me, but those that do will become a better type of Aaronite religion, better in that it will renounce animal sacrifice, for that practice is Luciferian, and will uphold vegetarianism and preach nonviolence. But that Nezerian Christianity, though more nonviolent and somewhat more spiritually elevated than Aaronite Judaism, is nevertheless some rungs below the Nasarean religion of the Essene Way, the full gospel of the Lord Christ and the Lady Christ, the religion of the Holy Megillah, Nasarean Bible of the Essene Way. The few that are ready to become Nasareans are the cream of the crop of the human harvest, but are a small minority. You former Aaronites will be trained to minister to Aaronites ready to receive their long-awaited Messiah of peace. And when you recognize one that is also ready to receive the Nasarean full gospel religion, bring him or her to one of our travel companions assigned to oversee your ministry. All right, so this is the most important part. We really came here for this part because I was telling you that those 32 they were sent out in blocks of 4. I'm gonna put that on at the end because they had a mission, and this is some of the stuff they were told to say by Yahshua himself. So another of the former Aaronites, prepared by John, asked a question. He said, "Lord, you say that the Aaronite Jews that we will outreach to will be required to embrace vegetarianism to receive baptism. How could we preach vegetarianism to them when so few Aaronites are vegetarian? Will they not reject it as being strictly a Nasarean practice?" Yahshua replied, "Show them that even in their own Aaronite scriptures, vegetarianism is the original diet given by God to humankind. Read to them the scriptures from their own Bible that reads, I give you all plants and herbs that bear seed, and every tree that bears fruit to be your food." Then also show them the verses about the coming peaceable kingdom prophesied in their own Aaronite scriptures, the lion and the lamb feeding non-violently together as friends. Tell them that after the flood their scriptures, but not the Nasarean scriptures, taught that the original vegetarian diet injunction of Genesis was temporarily set aside by God due to the lack of available food immediately after the flood. Tell them that I, Yahshua, as the Messiah of peace, hereby proclaim that the day of their rededication to the original vegetarian diet injunction of Genesis has now arrived. See, they had a message. This was the mission to Israel. And so I'm just connecting all of this together because I have a bigger, broader picture about like what happened. The Megillah teaches like really a lot of details about what was going on. These words of Christ. I can see like there being all of these different fractions and teachings that made it through the test of time. We're here. And you heard what they said about Israel and Yisrael. Everything out of the right relationship with Elohim is considered Israel. So it's funny how we were reading about the cursed fig tree in the video before this one, and it said, let me go over there. It said in the Old Testament, the people of Israel are sometimes represented as figs on a fig tree. or a fig tree that bears no fruit. Jeremiah and Hosea. And I wanted to read this on the first video. It says here, and I agree with it, at first sight, the destruction of the fig tree does not seem to fit Jesus's behavior. I'm not saying this Kabbalah tree itself is the tree that Lucifer planted, but this is a unfruitful tree because it's just death. So this would be the tree that got leaves all over but no fruit. So I'm saying, I'm starting to think about, like the mission that was to Israel to write all that stuff, and we just have to have eyes to see and ears to hear. There's one more place I do want to read in the King James, but we'll save that for part 3. All right, guys, stay tuned. We're still talking about this fig tree generation. The one that shall not pass. It reminded me of Gandalf, because I just recently watched The Lord of the Rings, when he was like, "You shall not pass." Yeah. But this is all about love, guys. The real message and the real teaching is about universal salvation for all. So we got work to do, because we need to study, because this may happen on another world, and we need to know how they do what they do. So I'm still connecting all of this stuff together. This might be the last one, but maybe not, because I had wanted to read another long piece out of the Megillah about the 4-person blocks. Yahshua says upon these, he calls them the cornerstones. These are the ones, this is the Ha-Azanus. I'm going to just read the last part. Because they were divided. It was those 32. They're divided into 4-person blocks with a block leader. The block leaders was called the cornerstones. And he says, to each of the 4-person blocks, I say, Ha-Azanu, give ear. Each seemingly separate block is a part of one strong foundation of the temple of Christ. Upon these stones, we will build our church.
We in the trenches, under attack, separated from the nest.